Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the world according to Tom. Sorry I haven't seen you guys for a while. I'm sure that you missed me a bunch. I wanted to tell you about a couple of things this week, kind of highlight some things this week that I learned. One of them is something called CRP. Now, I haven't had time to do much research on it, so I'm probably a little preemptive in my video, but it stands for something having to do with conservation. And really the idea behind CRP is basically the idea out here in the agricultural areas. The federal government will actually pay for farmers not to farm their land. Now you might say that that's a good thing. You might say that's a horrible thing. But the position that I'm coming from obviously dictates that it's a horrible thing. Not only is I don't believe there's any provision in the Constitution. What's that? You know, that document that limits government, from taking over people's property and whatnot. So basically, the federal government pays you to not farm on your land. So I'm out here in some agricultural areas, and I'm talking to farmers, and I believe that it's a common misconception that people in agriculture, these farmers, are the most patriotic Americans in the country. I don't actually believe that to be true. I can't generalize and say they're all like that, but I can tell you that the most of them that I've actually met are not. They believe they are, however, like most Americans do. They like to wave their flag and have a barbecue and eat hot dogs and go to football games and say that we love our freedom and God bless America and the land of the free and the home of the brave and all that stuff. But in reality, it's quite something different, because the farmers, money speaks, and money speaks rather well to most people, especially to government, in their creative ways to be able to make it and enslave people with the money that they actually hang over their heads. So the farmers actually say that the CRP has really helped me out. It's just made it to where when we've had poor growing years, the federal government subsidizes it and makes it okay and helps us make a living. They have no clue that the taxpayer pays that money. So in reality, you and I as taxpayers, from the way I see it, are all part owners of their land. Or worse off yet, the government actually is control of their land, and they have to be able to pay out the terms of the contract if they decide that they want to farm on there. And I guess there's some penalties and things. Imagine that, dealing with that. So CRP, I thought about the acronym for CRP, even though I don't know what it is, but it would seem that this country is in desperate need of CPR. And the idea that we would actually support CRP would show really how far away we are from resuscitating this nation. So I wanted to be able to share that with you guys. I'm sure that you guys know way more about that than I do. It's been around a long time. My general assumption that it was something having to do with Agenda 21, I'm sure it probably does now, but it had something to do with, that illustrious President FDR way back in the day, price fixing and the rest of those things to try to help people be able to eat. So basically that was that. And then I ran into, as you guys know, I visit police chiefs and sheriffs across the state. I'm having some great talks and communications doing that. I'm really loving it. I've been told that law enforcement are a little bit perplexed because they find that there's some constitutionalists somehow, and they wonder why a constitutionalist would go to such great lengths to be able to try to reach out to the sheriffs and the police and find out what they think, find out what they feel, find out what they're doing, and why I am so interested in having them know a little bit more about who we are. Of course, there's a special issue magazine by the New American that came out, and those are actually being delivered all over the state and all over the country to be able to help law enforcement understand that they are really heading towards a nationalization of police, but not even nationalization now. It's really interesting. That was the goal for the communists back in back in the 60s with the Watts riots. But now they're moving toward a globalization of police, which is hard enough to try to get people to believe, under what it looks to be like the Safe Cities initiative that the UN is calling for partnerships with local agencies and the federal government. So I was in a conversation with a guy, and he says, well, we really are in a lot of trouble in this country and all that, and I really appreciate you coming and talking to us about who you are and what you're doing and all of that kind of thing. He says, but I'm really not a constitutionalist. And I said, really? I said, so you took an oath and you're telling me that you're not a constitutionalist. And so he kind of looks at me, kind of confused a little bit, and didn't say anything. And I said, and I'm metaphorically challenged, so this might not work, but I said, you know, if you drive a car, you're a motorist, huh? And he said, yeah. And I said, so if you don't drive a car, you're probably not a motorist, right? He said, yeah. And I said, well, then why is it that I'm labeled a constitutionalist, but I never took the oath? And I said, but you're not labeled a constitutionalist, and you did take the oath. He says, that's a really good point. And I said, well, it is. I said, so how do you define constitutionalist anyway? And who's throwing around these smear campaigns about the fact that people that uphold our current form of government are now subversives? They said, you know, people that are constitutionalists, you know, they're like the skinheads and the KKK. I thought, how did the constitutionalists end up being linked with the KKK? Well, I don't know about you guys, but the John Birch Society had talked about this, the smear campaign. They call them sandwich smears, where they'll actually take something decent and they'll put something evil on both sides. They might say America, or they might say Tom Munz or something. I don't know, right? And then they'll put a picture of Mao on one side and Hitler on the other side, and see, Tom is linked with these two guys. And so that's, ladies and gentlemen, is how it works. That is your classic sandwich smear. And that is what your government believes, because they don't know any better, apparently. They're acting in post-9/11 fear, as they say. And these things are hugely important. And this is a lot of the reason why I do what I do, because, you know, people say that it's time for guns. And I'll tell you that it isn't. Only because we still have our mouths, and we still have people that are willing to listen. People that are willing to speak and people that are willing to hear can make a tremendous difference in our communities. We've always been able to do that. But I wanted to go over a couple of things that I have some frustration about. Now, granted, you know, my idea is to try to round up troops like I have since I've become active, but I have some obstacles I'm hoping that you guys can help me out with. And, you know, the number one excuse is I'm too busy. Well, let me ask you this. If everybody in America is too busy, but everybody identifies that there's a problem in this country, who's going to fix it? And can an airplane fly forever on autopilot? And can a country maintain its freedom on autopilot while nobody else pays attention? And I have a couple of you know, answers that I use and stuff like that. I can go through those, but I'm extending my time here on this video here. The other one is, I'm only one person. What can I do? You know, if you guys have any wisdom on how to deal with that, I would really love to do that, because I know that our history is replete with examples of one man that have made all the difference in the world. But somehow, in America, we have become the once land of the free and the home of the brave. We're now the cowardly and the scaredy cats, and we don't really want to get involved. So I'm wondering if these are just excuses. The other one is, the government is too corrupt and nothing that we do will matter. Well, even though it does seem that way, most of it comes from the fact that the people, in all of their ignorance and not understanding our principles in this country, have actually voted for these people, which is, we've actually voted for our own corruption to some degree, aside from many controlling entities above that. That's a different topic. The other one is, I don't want to be on a list. Well, chances are, if you've mentioned the word freedom to anyone, or you've read any books, or you've done that, you know, you're probably already on a list. And if you don't want to stand with the other people that are going to stand no matter what, then basically I might be able to consider you as maybe a socialist, or maybe someone that is more reliant on somebody else doing something for you that you should be doing for yourself. And the one thing I want to leave with you guys that most people forget is, we are a very selfish culture. We want to spend into oblivion, and we want to be able to put our children in tremendous debt. We don't care what's left for them, because we're going to be dead, right? Who is protecting their freedom? Who is protecting the children's freedom? Who is on guard to be able to preserve anything that might be left for them? The military's not doing it, is it? The school teachers aren't doing it, are they? Our government is not doing that. Who is? The only one that is left are you and I. And that is why I continue to do what I do, and I'm sure to some degree that's what you guys do. So we need to continue to spread the message of liberty. I love you guys. Have a great weekend. Talk to you later.